Welcome to FT Live here at the Doha Forum. I'm joined by Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, Labour peer, architect, one of the architects of the famous 1997 Labour landslide victory, 2 days after its biggest defeat since 1935. What do you think happened?
Well, first of all, let me say I'm pretty devastated by what happened. I'm shocked by it. Not entirely surprised, because I'm afraid I don't think the result was entirely undeserved by the Labour Party. If you go in to an election with a leader who is sort of minus 40% in his own ratings, a programme which was, let's face it, so extreme. I mean, not in many of the ideas and individual policies it put forward, but collectively, the sheer impracticality and unaffordability and poorly costed nature of a programme like that is bound to be rejected by very many voters, and that's exactly what's happened. But I'm not just devastated, in a sense, by the loss of some brilliant Labour MPs and candidates and the loss that many communities must be feeling about the absence now of a Labour government and the huge expectations that they had from a Labour government. But I'm shocked in a sense by the sheer indifference shown by the present leadership of the Labour Party, the Momentum organisation, whose spokesmen and women I've been listening to on radio and television. It's a sort of shrug. It's a sort of, well, you know, swings and roundabouts. At least we're pure to ourselves. As long as we can keep hold of what we believe in and what we want to think is right, then I'm afraid it doesn't matter, because we don't want to compromise with the electorate. That's the sort of attitude I've been hearing, and I'm just simply appalled by it.
Do you think it was Brexit that caused the defeat?
No. Look, Brexit played a factor, and the sense of the public, you know, wanting to move on was palpable. But if Brexit was a factor, it was because they felt that the Labour Party's position, and that of Jeremy Corbyn in particular, was so equivocal. I mean, they didn't really know what Jeremy Corbyn's position was. You know, one week it seemed to be leaning this way, another week it seemed to be leaning that, and then finally he announces that if he became Prime Minister, he would remain neutral on the subject of Brexit. Well, you can make many arguments for his policies, but for the public, the idea that you're going to remain neutral on a subject as big and daunting as that was just simply incredible.
And where does Labour go now? What do they need to do to get back to a position where they can win and form a government?
Well, Labour's got to make up its mind whether it wants to win. I mean, all the things that Labour stands for and all the things that Labour governments have achieved over the last 100 years have been achieved through winning elections, building coalitions of public support, appealing across the country, across classes, across incomes, across generations. You have to build those coalitions if you're going to get a mandate and an overall majority to get into office, to carry out those, you know, radical changes which you believe are vital and for which you've just been elected. If you though seem to have an attitude, well, you know, winning is sort of, you know, winning is an afterthought, or you know, winning is for people who simply want to compromise, or you know, winning is for people who don't sort of believe in true values or pure principles. Well, fine, go and join a debating society. You know, go and join an essay club. But if you do, say goodbye to power and say goodbye to those changes that we stand for and want to bring about for the good of our country and the people we speak for in our country.
Are you optimistic about Labour in the next year ahead? Do you think it's possible with the voting system for leadership that you can get a
I want to see people recognising two things from this election. One is that a far left programme of the sort that we put forward is never going to be supported by enough voters to get us elected to office. So much is now clear and demonstrated, and I hope people now realise how foolhardy it was to treat the public like for fools, really. But secondly, that there is only one party available that can offer a centre-left alternative to the Tories, and that is Labour. It's not the Liberal Democrats, it's not Change UK, it's not Tom, Dick and Harry, sitting on the sidelines somewhere. There is only one party that has the support, the brand, the traction with the public, that can get elected should it wish to, and put forward a programme which would make it electable, and that is the Labour Party. But it's a Labour Party that can provide a centre-left alternative to the Conservatives only if it once again is prepared to build up that coalition of support across not just the true believers, not just the your own people and your own supporters and the people you've already converted, but people you want to win over to your side.
The reality is now that the Conservatives are going to be in power for a good number of years. Brexit is going to happen at the end of January. What sort of deal is possible to be achieved this year, or 2020?
Leaving the European Union is almost a certainty at the end of January. That's true. But what is far from certain are the terms on which we leave the European Union, because that, of course, depends on the trade agreement. The second part of this deal.
And what's possible in a year that to be negotiated? As a former trade commissioner, you've got a good sense.
Well, it used to be my job to negotiate trade agreements with third countries of the sort that Britain has now become. Within a year, a very minimalist, sort of like tariff-only trade agreement. Something.
Will that then involve difficult issues like fish, level playing field issues?
It would involve. Not if it was so minimalist. If it was sort of Canada minus, you would certainly give up all your frictionless trade between Britain and the UK and the European Union. It would, as I say, be a sort of minimalist trade agreement. The alternative is that we have a very full trade agreement that is negotiated almost entirely on the terms offered to us by the European Union. It would, in a sense, see us leaving the European Union, but staying within the economic system of the European Union. Now, the government, Mr. Johnson, has rejected both those. Both the sort of minimalist option, he says he wants it to be deep and ambitious, but at the same time he rejects the idea that we would remain within the economic system of the European Union, in other words, aligned with the laws and the rules and the standards of the European Union. Now that means he wants something hybrid, unique, of a sort that, from my direct experience, I can assure you, will take much longer than a year to negotiate. It would require huge creativity, huge ingenuity, quite a lot of negotiating, perseverance and fortitude, and it would take some years.
And so what's your prediction for what's most likely to happen in 2020?
Well, Boris Johnson said when he was looking at the withdrawal agreement, the first agreement in this two-part deal, that he would never, ever, ever concede to the European Union and what they were insisting upon, rightly in my view, in respect of the Irish border. Then at the 11th hour, he caved and basically embraced what the European Union wanted and sort of turned his previous position on its head. Will he do that again in the case of this trade deal and say, well, look, I've looked at this now and I've negotiated and I've really gone into this with great depth and drilled down into each sector of the economy, and in my view it's too big a economic cost to Britain. It would be too painful a Brexit, if we were to diverge and detach ourselves completely from that market in the way that would be implied if we were just going to sort of go for our economic freedom and go for a policy of divergence from you. Too big a price, and I'm not going to do it. Then he'd have to see down and see off an awful lot of people in his own party. Whether he will do that remains to be seen. But I think with Boris Johnson these days, it's about anyone's guess.
Peter Mandelson, thank you very much.